I was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1946, and I went to school at NYU and then graduated from City College. I moved to Michigan in 1969, and I founded the creative writing program at the Residential College of the University of Michigan in 1970. And I began painting in August of 2003. I have a cabin in northern Michigan, and my best friend there is the painter Michael Lukes. And one day I walked into his studio out of the blue. I'd been there, hundreds of times, and he said, you know, you ought to try this. And he stuck a piece of paper up on the wall and gave me some acrylic paint and a few brushes, and I painted. And it was just fun the first few times, just moving the paint around on the paper, seeing how it was. You know, and then on about the third piece of paper, all of a sudden this painting came out. I looked out the window at the trees, right, and I said, okay, I just tried to duplicate what I saw, and this painting came out. It's not really art. It wasn't thought through at all. It's more like a piece of decor that you would buy at a furniture store. But it was pleasing. You know, Michael liked it, my wife liked it, and in fact, my wife has it hanging in her office today. As I said, when I first started painting, everything was a total surprise. You know, how paint's out on the canvas, the effect different brushes had, the way you can make different brush strokes. But I quickly became most interested in color, because there's such a range of color. And what really interested me was the rural habitat and the rural settings around my studio in Lovell, Michigan. You know, an area that's a jack pine forest, really, and where there are a lot of mobile homes and trailer homes. And I really find sort of the juxtaposition between this beautiful setting of jack pines leading up to white pines and just ground, and then, like, you know, these stark homes, really interesting to me, and I've done a lot of painting of that. My work is a direct response, I feel, to my spiritual need and my appreciation of the country and the upper Great Lakes, and the juxtaposition I see between the lives sometimes that people who live up there are forced to lead and the incredible beauty that surrounds them. I try to paint using color in a way that is evocative. I try to pick my subject matter in a way that will be evocative, that sort of rises out of my spiritual life, and that I hope speaks not only to me, but also speaks to people who will allow themselves to look at work and be comforted by it, drawn into it, and will allow themselves to construct a narrative from the painting. You know, I pay attention to other art, you know, and I look at art that appears in the galleries in New York and Chicago, and I see a lot of stuff that I find interesting, but my art comes from a different place. You know, my paintings are not decorous art. You know, they're not meant to be like orderly, dignified representations. They're not meant to be abstractions. They're meant to be my vision of what I see. They're meant to be evocative. They're meant to, like, draw you in through the use of color so that you create a narrative for yourself when you look at these paintings, so that you can see yourself in my paintings.